Let's talk about what actually happened on Stadium Court at Hard Rock Stadium. Because what Eala did against Laura Siegemund at the 2026 Miami Open was not just a tennis match, it was a chess match, a psychological war, and a masterclass in composure, all packed into 3 hours and 20 minutes of some of the most gripping tennis this tournament has seen in years. And what made it even more extraordinary was not just that Eala won, it was how she won. Because Laura Siegemund did not just bring a racket and a game plan onto that court. She brought a full arsenal of tricks, delays, and psychological disruptions that have driven some of the biggest names in women's tennis absolutely crazy. Names like Coco Gauff, names like every player who has ever had the misfortune of standing across the net from this particular 38-year-old German veteran and watching the clock tick while their own momentum slowly evaporated. Siegemund tried everything she had, and Eala shut every single bit of it down. Let us set the scene properly. March 19th, 2026. Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida. The stands were already buzzing with the kind of energy that only happens when Eala walks onto a court in 2026. Filipino flags everywhere, chants echoing across the open air, security doing its best to manage corridors that had been turned into impromptu viewing galleries by hundreds of fans who had arrived before the sun was fully up. This was not just another second-round match at a WTA 1000 event. This was a statement of intent from a 20-year-old who had come back to the tournament that changed her life and was determined to prove that last year was not the ceiling, it was the floor. Her opponent was Laura Siegemund, and if you follow women's tennis with any regularity, that name alone should tell you everything you need to know about why this match was always going to be complicated. Siegemund is the second oldest player in the women's top 60, a 38-year-old veteran who has spent 2 decades accumulating every trick in the book, every stall, every pause, every lingering delay between points that inches closer and closer to the shot clock limit without quite crossing it far enough to earn a violation. She has used that slowness as a weapon against opponents for years, disrupting their rhythm, cooling their momentum, breaking their concentration at the exact moments when they feel the most dangerous. It is not accidental. It is not incidental. It is a strategy, carefully developed over a career that has outlasted players far younger and far more gifted. Because Siegemund figured out a long time ago that tennis is as much a mental game as a physical one. And she has been exploiting that truth ever since. Eala came flying out of the blocks. She stormed to a 3-0 lead before Siegemund dug in and halted the momentum by grinding a seemingly routine 4th game into an exhausting point-by-point battle that stretched far longer than it had any right to. That game right there told you everything about what Siegemund was going to do over the next 3 hours. She was not going to try to out-hit Eala from the baseline. She was not going to outpower her or outrun her. She was going to slow everything down. She was going to stretch every game, drag every point, make the match feel like it was being played through quicksand, and it worked in the short term. Eala lost a grueling opening set on a tiebreak after leading 3-0 and having 4 separate set points to close it out. 4 set points, gone. All of them. Siegemund was steady in the key moments, using every second of experience she had to steal a set that Eala had dominated for large stretches. It was the kind of gut punch that has derailed careers. It was the kind of first set theft that makes young players tighten up, start pressing, start overthinking, start questioning whether the universe is conspiring against them. That is exactly what Siegemund was counting on. And then the second set began. And that is where this match went from a tennis story to a cultural moment. When Eala was serving at 2-1 in the second set, Siegemund walked to the back of the court after the 20-year-old misplaced a ball toss, deliberately slowing everything down at the exact moment Eala was trying to build rhythm. Siegemund then appeared to raise a concern with the chair umpire, stretching the interruption even further. Think about what that move is designed to do. You have just stolen a set from your opponent. She is serving. She is starting to build momentum again. She has reset after the heartbreak of losing 4 set points. And at the exact moment she misplaces a toss and has to restart, you walk away from the baseline, You slow everything down. You let whatever energy she has been building leak slowly out of the moment. It is subtle. It is experienced. It is exactly the kind of thing a 38-year-old veteran does when she cannot out-rally a 20-year-old who is playing the better tennis. You do not beat her with your racket, you beat her with the clock. But Eala had something to say about that. She did not go quiet. She did not absorb it and look down at her strings and shuffle back to the baseline, hoping the umpire would sort it out. She walked directly to the chair. She looked up at the official and she said clearly and calmly, "Just wanted you to know. This time I was about to serve." Siegemund, standing at the back of the court, heard every word and fired right back. It is not about the time, it is about the focus. And there it was, the psychological grenade, lobbed mid-match by a veteran who wanted Eala to start thinking about her focus instead of her game. Wanted her inside her own head instead of locked into the match. It was a calculated provocation from a player who has been doing this for 20 years. The crowd saw it. The cameras caught it. And Eala did something that revealed exactly what kind of player she has become in the 12 months since she arrived in Miami as a wild card with nothing to lose. She turned around, walked back to the baseline, and won the game. This is the part that does not show up in the box score. The mental fortitude required to stand on a WTA 1000 court, face an opponent who is deliberately trying to dismantle your rhythm, respond publicly and assertively without losing composure, and then execute the very next point with the same clarity you had before the confrontation began. That is not a skill that comes from a practice session or a fitness drill. That is character. That is the kind of thing you either have or you do not, and Eala has it in abundance. The second set became a statement. From the moment Eala established her position at the chair umpire's stand, the dynamic of the match changed completely. She refused to let the delays affect her. She controlled the tempo. She attacked with confidence, moved Siegemund around the court, and stayed locked into her own rhythm, regardless of whatever was happening between points on the other side of the net. Siegemund tried to slow things down again. She complained about crowd movement. She took her time between games. She looked to the umpire repeatedly, searching for any intervention that might break Eala's concentration. None of it worked. Game by game, Eala built pressure and took control. She remained disciplined, capitalized on her opportunities, and took the second set 6-3 with an authority that was startling, given how the first set had ended. The momentum had completely shifted, and for the first time all match, Siegemund looked out of answers. Heading into the third set, this was no longer just a tennis match. It was a battle of wills. A contest between a veteran who had spent 20 years learning how to outlast opponents through attrition and a 20-year-old who had spent the last 12 months learning that she belongs anywhere she chooses to stand. The third set began, and Eala looked like a completely different player from the one who had squandered 4 set points 90 minutes earlier. She was calm. She was precise. She was patient in exactly the way that Siegemund had hoped she would not be, because patience was supposed to be Siegemund's weapon. Instead, it had become Eala's. Siegemund kept trying. She involved the umpire again, complaining about spectators moving in her eye line, claiming distractions, searching for anything that might buy her a moment of relief. But the officials had seen enough by this point. The crowd had seen enough. And more importantly, Eala had seen enough. She did not react. She did not look over. She did not engage with a single second of the theater unfolding around her. She kept her attention on what she could control, which was the ball, the court, and the point in front of her. Nothing else existed. That level of focus past the 3-hour mark in the Miami Heat against an opponent who had been deliberately draining her energy since the very first game is extraordinary. It is the kind of focus that separates good players from great ones. And this is the moment to give that Siegemund pattern the full context it deserves, because this was not the first time the tennis world had watched this exact situation play out. Anyone who follows the tour knows what happened at the 2023 US Open, when Siegemund faced Coco Gauff in a match that became one of the most talked about controversies of that season. Gauff, one of the most competitive players on tour and a future world #1, completely lost her composure mid-match. She was screaming at the umpire, visibly furious, telling officials that Siegemund had gone over the shot clock multiple times. "She is never ready when I am serving," Gauff said, barely containing her fury, and the crowd at Arthur Ashe Stadium heard every word. After that match, Siegemund held her own press conference, where she insisted that both the crowd and Goff had treated her unfairly, that she had been made to feel like a cheater when she was simply playing within the rules. Less than zero is how she described the treatment she felt she received. She cast herself as the wronged party. She painted a picture of a player being bullied by the crowd and ganged up on by her opponent. The tennis world watched that press conference and drew its own conclusions. And here in Miami in 2026, the pattern repeated itself. The delays, the umpire involvement, the attempts to disrupt rhythm at critical moments. The same playbook, run against a different opponent on a different court in a different year. But the result was different this time because the opponent was different. Coco Gauff, as brilliant and as fierce as she is, got drawn into the drama. She let Siegemund pull her out of her game and into an emotional battle that nobody wins when they are the one losing their composure. Alex Eala did the opposite. She walked to the chair umpire once, made her point clearly and calmly, then went back to the baseline and played tennis. She never raised her voice. She never showed frustration on her face. She never gave Siegemund the emotional reaction that the veteran was fishing for. She simply played, and she won. When the final point landed and Eala sealed the match 6-3 in the third set, she let out a powerful victory cry that echoed across Stadium Court. 3 hours and 20 minutes of restraint, discipline, and controlled intensity released in a single moment. The crowd erupted, the flags went up, the chants started again. And on the other side of the net, Siegemund offered a brief and notably cold handshake before walking away, the visible frustration of someone who had thrown every tool she had at an opponent and found none of them working. It was a telling contrast. Eala in that moment was joy and release and gratitude and fire all at once. Siegemund was quiet and tight and already somewhere else in her mind. That contrast said everything about who won not just the match, but the psychological battle that had been running underneath it for 3.5 hours. What this victory means in the broader context of Eala's 2026 campaign cannot be overstated. She came into this tournament with 380 ranking points to defend, knowing that an early exit would send her sliding back down the rankings after everything she had built across 12 months of professional tennis. She came in carrying the weight of a nation, tens of thousands of Filipino fans who had turned the grounds of Hard Rock Stadium into a moving, chanting, flag-waving cathedral every single day. She came in as a seeded player for the first time in Miami, which means expectations rather than freedom. And on top of all of that, she had to face an opponent whose game plan was specifically designed to deny her the rhythm and tempo that makes her dangerous. She overcame every single one of those pressures, every one. The road ahead is significant. Karolina Muchova awaits in the round of 16, a former top 10 player with Grand Slam final experience, and the kind of varied, unpredictable game that can dismantle opponents who rely too heavily on a single pattern. Muchova is a dangerous draw for anyone at any stage of a tournament. But after what the world just watched against Siegemund, after the composure and the adaptability and the sheer mental endurance that Eala demonstrated over 3 hours and 20 minutes against one of the most difficult opponents to play on the entire tour, it is very hard to look at that upcoming match and say with any confidence that Eala cannot handle it. She has already handled harder things than a fourth-round tennis match. She handled them in the first hour of this one. Alex Eala did not just defeat Laura Siegemund at the 2026 Miami Open. She exposed every trick in the German veteran's arsenal, refused to be destabilized by any of them, fought back from the brink of losing the match in the first set, and then produced 40 minutes of some of the cleanest, most composed tennis of her entire career when the pressure was at its absolute highest. She did it in front of thousands of fans who had come from across the country and across the ocean to watch her. She did it on the court where she first announced herself to the world 1 year ago, and she did it with a maturity that players twice her age struggle to maintain. Performances like this build champions, not the ones where everything goes smoothly and the draw opens up and the points come easy. The ones where the match is ugly and the opponent is difficult and the set points disappear and the pressure is real and the moment demands more than talent alone. Those matches are where character is revealed. And what was revealed on Stadium Court in Miami on March 19, 2026, was a 20-year-old who is not just good enough to compete on the biggest stage in women's tennis. She is good enough to own it. So here's what I want to know from you right now. Do you think Siegemund's tactics crossed the line, or were they simply experienced gamesmanship within the rules of the game? Were you shocked by Eala's composure, or did this confirm something you already knew about who she is as a competitor? And how far do you believe she goes from here at the Miami Open? Muchova is next, and after a performance like this, nothing feels impossible. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Subscribe to Court Era Tennis and ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of this run. Because trust me, you do not want to look back and realize you were not watching when history was being made. This is Eala's tournament, and we are only just getting started.